In this lesson, we're going to mirror the geometry that's below the horizontal construction line. But before we do, let's take a closer look at our work. The sketch is fully defined, it has several relations and dimensions, and we use some of the construction lines to create diametral dimensions. The standard lines form an open profile, which is sketch geometry that doesn't form a closed loop. If the horizontal construction line was a standard line, the standard lines would form a closed loop, and this would be called a closed profile. Since this line is a construction line, the standard lines form an open profile. Now I want you to visualize the lines being mirrored across the construction line. This would form a closed loop. If you can visualize the closed loop being revolved around this construction line, you'll see how we're going to construct the pulley. If you can't visualize this, watch this lesson and the next lesson, and then watch this lesson once again. The diametral dimensions are helpful because they define the overall thickness after the geometry is mirrored. For example, when this line is mirrored across the construction line, the new line will be 3/4 of an inch from the original. So this dimension defines the thickness of the pulley at this location. In fact, both the diametral dimensions on this construction line define the thickness of the part. The thickness in these areas is more informative than half the thickness because it directly describes the final thickness of the geometry. Notice that this dimension only defines half the thickness. Usually when you're designing a part, the design parameters define the thickness and not half the thickness. So let's change this dimension to a diametral dimension. Highlight it, and then type the delete key. Now type the D key, and then select the line in the construction line. Place the text above the construction line, and now you can easily see that the thickness of the pulley will be 3/4 of an inch. Now let's look at the relations on the sketch. Zoom into this end so that you can see coincident relation number 3. If you recall, this relation makes the node coincident with the line. By definition, a line extends infinitely in both directions, so this node is coincident with the line. The relation symbol is shown next to the line and the node to indicate that these are the entities that are constrained by the relation. I'm showing you this now because the constraints will change when we perform the mirror operation. So for now, notice the symbols that are shown in the graphics area. Also notice that these lines are parallel and constrained with the second parallel relation. Now if you pan to the left end of the profile, you can see that the first coincident relation makes this line coincident with the node on the origin of the sketch. The rest of the relations are horizontal and vertical relations, and these relations control the rotation of the entities relative to the coordinate system of the sketch. So these relations are independent. That is, a vertical relation on one entity is not dependent on a vertical relation on another entity. Now that we've looked at the relations on the sketch, we're ready to mirror the geometry. Click the Mirror Entities command. The first step is to select the entities to mirror, and the easiest way to do this is to drag a window around them. Drag a window from left to right, because when you drag it from right to left, any of the lines that the window crosses over are added to the selection. If you drag the window from left to right, only the lines inside the window will be selected. So drag the window so that it crosses over this line, and drag it to the right so that it looks about like this. When you release your left mouse button, the lines are added to the list in the Property Manager. If all went well, these are the lines that should be in your list. If you've redrawn the lines, different numbers will appear because every time you draw a line, a new line number is assigned to it. Line 13 should be the construction line. Highlight it, and you should see it highlighted in the graphics area. We don't need to mirror this line, so type the delete key. This deletes the line from the list. If you leave the copy option checked, the lines will be copied above the construction line, which is what we want to do. If you uncheck the option, the mirrored lines will be created above the construction line, but the existing lines will be deleted. You might want to practice unchecking this option later. For now, leave it checked. Now we need to select the mirror line. Click the Mirror About window, and then select the construction line. When you do, you'll see a preview of the mirror operation. Type the Enter key, or click the green check to complete the operation. Now that you've mirrored the geometry, look at the relations on the sketch. We'll talk about these relations in the next lesson.